Chase, Citibank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America. Do you know what your bank is up to? While the average American earns 0.012 interest in his or her savings account right now, bankers are secretly funneling their money into little-known 770 accounts, quietly earning between 4.5% and 5%.
It's preposterous. There's no reason every American shouldn't know about these accounts. I put over $50,000 of my own money into these accounts, personally.
This has been a godsend for our family.
No one is telling Americans about the 770s. Not banks, not Wall Street, not the government. In fact, government places incredibly tight restrictions on the advertising of these programs.
Today we bring you inside the world of high finance to uncover the banking industry's biggest secret. A secret account so powerful that bankers have withdrawn billions from their own banks to invest in it. In this special report, we'll show you how everyday Americans have started to take advantage of these underground accounts and how you can do it too. Hi, I'm Bob Irish, reporting to you from Palm Beach, Florida. I'm here today because I've been part of a special investigation that's uncovered what I believe to be one of the biggest banking conspiracies of the last 50 years. The scandal we're going to expose today is so big and wide-ranging that practically every man and woman in America will be affected by it. It involves all the biggest banks in the country: Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, as well as thousands of smaller community banks and credit unions. All told, about 4,000 banks are in on the scheme. But this has nothing to do with banks stealing money from their clients, as they recently did in the small European country of Cyprus. And it also has nothing to do with the big bailouts many of America's biggest banks received a few years ago. No, what we're going to cover today has to do with large, secret transactions that have been taking place inside America's banks for years now, all behind closed doors. These transactions are allowing bankers to earn between 30 and 40 times more interest on their money than what they're offering you, the general public. And yet almost no one in America knows this is happening. In fact, banks aren't talking about this. Not on TV or the radio or in the papers. And it doesn't matter how much money you have invested or how long you've been a client with your bank, they'll likely never tell you about these accounts in person either. In a minute, we'll feature testimony from an ex-banker who told us about these secret accounts and how they work. Because so few people know about these accounts, and because they sound too good to be true, this man even agreed to sign a sworn affidavit to prove what he was saying was true. And what he revealed was shocking indeed. While most Americans, and especially retirees like me, are struggling to find decent yields on their money right now, bankers across the country are secretly using 770 accounts, named after the IRS code that allows them to exist, to earn up to 30 to 40 times more interest on their money. All 100% tax-free. To put that in perspective, that's the difference between earning $100 on your money in the bank and being taxed on this amount and earning $4,000 tax-free in one of these special accounts. In fact, these 770 accounts are so powerful, some people have even started draining their 401ks to invest in them instead. Here's what one man told us.
Before I discovered this account, I was racking my brain about how to safely grow my family's money. The crash of '08 really spooked me, and we lost a ton. That's when I started searching for a safer alternative and found out about the banker's secret. Since then, I haven't lost a minute of sleep or a single dime. My money's just gone up and is on pace to reach tens of thousands of dollars. I've even cashed out my 401ks and put all my safe money in this account.
While very little information about these accounts ever reaches the general public, one Wall Street Journal article did slip through the cracks a few years ago. Here's what it said. The 770 account, and I quote, has become a tax shelter for the rich. It gives the affluent tax advantages far beyond those available to middle-income people through a 401k or IRA. End quote. The 770 has become a tax shelter for the rich because the money accumulated inside this account grows tax-free and can be withdrawn completely tax-free, without penalties of any kind. But it's not only rich people who are allowed to take advantage of this account. As part of our investigation, we spoke to a pastor from Arkansas who told us his church had racked up over $500,000 in debt thanks to several repairs and purchases. Remarkably, however, within 4 years of starting his 770 account, the pastor had accumulated enough money to pay back over half the church's loans. That's $250,000 in 4 years just by investing in this simple account. But he's not the only non-banker who's discovered this secret. Another person said he made more money in his 770 account in 6 years than he'd previously made in 20 years by investing in his 401k. And still another person said he planned to use his account to fund a $100,000 per month retirement. Naturally, when I heard these stories, I was very intrigued. So I asked Tom, the ex-banker who first told me about the 770 account, to explain how it all worked. To give you a bit of background, Tom is a certified forensic accountant by trade. He used to work at the trading desks of Salomon Brothers and Citibank in London, where he oversaw billions of dollars in trades each day. Tom left the banking world, however, after growing disillusioned with how the banking industry works. It's engineered for the small guy to fail, he says. No matter how much money they make using things like the 770 account, they'll never tell people on the outside about them. Tom agreed to talk with us about this account under condition of anonymity. Here's what he had to say.
When I mention the 770 account to people, the first reaction I get is, if this account is so great, why haven't I heard of it before? It's a fair question. While everyone has been stuck chasing low-paying CDs, bonds, and dividends, bankers have been secretly accessing 770 accounts for years now, safely earning about 5% interest on their money, all tax-free. And actually, when you consider the fees and taxes most investments have, this can turn out to be about the same as a mutual fund that returns 9.2% a year. So why haven't people heard of these accounts before? Well, there are 3 important reasons the 770 has been kept hidden from the general public. The first reason is that the government restricts the advertising of these plans, even though they're 100% legal. You see, companies that provide these accounts aren't allowed to use words such as savings, investment, or retirement plans in their advertisements, even though that's one way these accounts can be used. But on the other hand, the good thing is, you don't have to report these accounts to the IRS. That means the money you have stored inside a 770 account grows and can be withdrawn 100% tax-free. In fact, that might be why the government restricts advertising on these secret accounts, because they can't make a dime off them. As a result, less than 0.07% of the entire American population has opened up a 770 account. About 1 person in every 1,500. While almost everyone in the country has a standard bank account, and nearly half the population has a 401k or similar type of retirement account. But the government's restrictions on advertising aren't the only reason these accounts have remained hidden from the limelight. Here's the second important reason. The bankers. Consider this. Did you know that Citibank has $4.5 billion stashed away in their own 770 account? Or that JP Morgan Chase has $9.8 billion? Or what about Wells Fargo? They have over $19.3 billion invested in their 770 account. That's twice as much money as they have invested in the infrastructure of all their bank buildings. It's incredible. All told, more than 4,000 banks have $140 billion invested inside secret 770 accounts. But as a bank client, you're not seeing a single red cent of these higher returns. All you get is the pesky 0 to 1% returns these bankers decide to throw our way. I'm sure you can see now why bankers don't like to tell the public about these accounts. They can make 5% on our money and pay us a fraction of a percent in return. It's easy money. But the problem actually extends past the bankers too. The third reason most people have never heard about 770 accounts has to do with Wall Street. What they're doing right now may really shock you. A contact of mine is one of the leading experts on the 770 account. She works almost exclusively with big clients, including one of America's biggest financial gurus, and even several people from Goldman Sachs and other large investment banks. I recently spoke to her, and she told me that no one in Wall Street has their money in stocks today, and that many of them are invested instead in 770 accounts. Now consider what this means. Here are the same investment professionals who've been telling their clients for years to buy stocks, and meanwhile, they're all putting their money somewhere else. Can you imagine the outrage this would create if most people found out about this? That's why you'll probably never hear your broker mention this investment to you, no matter how much money he or she has parked into it. And while the mainstream media haven't picked up on the 770 accounts, they have started to realize something doesn't add up on Wall Street. Consider, according to a recent Morningstar study, out of 2,257 equity managers investigated, 51% owned zero stake in the fund they manage. And another report recently told how one Merrill Lynch employee got caught in a series of email exchanges calling the stocks they recommend as pieces of junk and crap. It's enough to make your stomach turn. These are the investment professionals most people depend on for their retirements. That's why I got out of the industry, because big banks and Wall Street are all the same. They tell you to do one thing with your money, and then they do the exact opposite with their own money. If you look around, you'll see that this happens all the time. For example, think about the fiasco that occurred with Facebook's IPO. While the average investor got fleeced, with the price dropping 24% in the first 3 days of trading alone, Morgan Stanley blocked important research from getting to regular investors, including many of their own clients. The same kind of thing took place during the financial crisis. That's why it's much more important to look at what the bankers and brokers actually do with their own money, rather than what they tell other people to do.
The reason we dedicated this special broadcast to the 770 account today is because that's what the world's financial elite are doing with their money right now. Recently, a CEO from a Midwestern bank was overheard telling one of his advisors that the 770 accounts were his bank's best performing investment. His bank made so much money with this account that he ordered his executives to put into these accounts, and I quote, the maximum amount that the laws and regulators would allow. During our investigation, we also discovered another banker who liquidated his 401k account and is now putting in $24,000 a year to grow tax-free inside his own personal 770 account. We reached out to the CEO to try and get him to appear on camera. However, when he heard what we wanted to discuss, he refused to talk. But even though the bankers are keeping secret, the key principle, again, is to watch what they do, not what they say. And in fact, it's quite illuminating to see who else has used the 770 account through history. While most Americans have never heard of the 770 account before, the truth is, it has been used by many of the world's most powerful people for the last 100+ years. The Kennedys used it. So did U.S. Presidents Taft, Cleveland, McKinley, Harding, and FDR. In fact, Roosevelt held a substantial portion of his own wealth, $562,142, or over $7 million in today's dollars, stored inside his own secret 770 account. Even the Rockefellers are rumored to have used the 770 to substantially grow their family fortunes. Why only rumors? Well, you see, because 770 accounts are private agreements between individuals and the companies that issue these accounts, it's very difficult to determine who does and who doesn't store money in one of these accounts. That's another reason the rich love it. Many of the greatest entrepreneurs of our time, including Walt Disney, Ray Kroc, and J.C. Penney, have also turned to the 770 account to safeguard and grow their wealth. During the Great Depression, for example, J.C. Penney's chain of fledgling stores almost went under. 9,000 banks did go bankrupt during this period, but luckily, Penney didn't keep his money in the bank. He used a 770 account, which by 1929 had grown to over $3 million in value. Because of this move, James Cash Penney was able to save his company, which is now valued at $3.4 billion. I sat down with Tom, the ex-banker who first revealed this story to me, and asked him what you may be wondering at home. How do these accounts work? Tom, tell us how these accounts work.
In a way, the 770 accounts can work just like regular savings accounts. You put money in your account and then withdraw it anytime you like. Your money can also be guaranteed in some instances. However, unlike regular bank accounts, not only does the money inside a 770 account grow tax-free, but it can also grow much faster.
How's that possible?
Well, you see, by law, the companies that administer these accounts have to pay out 100% of their dividends to you and other 770 account holders. This is huge. Because of this, one company that started in 1857, that's 4 years before the Civil War, has now paid out over $64 billion in dividends to 770 account holders.
Wow.
I know. In fact, we studied 8 different companies that provide these accounts, and on average, these companies have paid dividends for 121 consecutive years.
Tom, you mentioned dividends. So does this have anything to do with banking stocks or dividend stocks?
No, not at all. This is a special type of dividend, and the companies that administer the 770 accounts are actually not even listed on the stock market at all. So this has nothing to do with banking stocks or dividend stocks. And that's one of the reasons the 770 is actually much safer than banks.
What do you mean safer than banks?
Well, just look at the FDIC records. That's the federal institute that insures bank deposits. Since the year 2000, there have been 499 bank failures in America. Consider the recent financial crisis. During 2008 and 2009, most equities lost 40 to 50% of their value.
You don't have to remind me.
I know, my dad actually had to come out of retirement because of the crash. We've got his retirement back on track now, so it's all okay.
So how did the 770 accounts do during the same time frame?
Well, in 2008, the market was cut in half. But only 2% of the assets the 770 companies held were affected.
Really?
It's absolutely true, and in fact, people with this underground account actually saw their money grow around 5%.
So you mean to tell me if I'd had my money in a 770 account back during the crisis, instead of being down some 40%, I could have actually grown my money by 5%?
Exactly. Over time, the 770 averages a 5% return per year.
Tom, where were you 5 years ago?
That's why I'm here today, Bob, because this is stuff that everybody needs to know about. The fact this account has been kept so secret has been keeping US retirees poor. But when the next crash comes, at least people won't be able to say they weren't warned. It's odd, really. When you look at it, the average investor is basically the only one left who hasn't been taking advantage of this account.
How so?
Well, corporate America puts billions into these accounts. Take Walmart, for example. They have a 770. So does GE. So does Comcast, Disney, Johnson & Johnson, Harley-Davidson, Gannett, Verizon, and nearly 700 other Fortune 1000 companies have these accounts. In fact, Walmart believes so much in this idea that at one time, they held more than 300,000 separate corporate versions of these accounts.
That's incredible. And this is all legal?
It's absolutely 100% legal. I have multiple accounts myself.
Okay, Tom, but what's the rationale for these companies keeping all this money in 770 accounts?
That's a great question. Here's the thing. These companies have some of the largest executive payrolls around. They have gigantic retirement packages to fund. Comcast CEO Brian Roberts, for example, is owed a $223 million pension over the course of his retirement. But to meet these future obligations, these companies haven't found any better ways to grow their money and make sure it's there when they need it than by investing in 770 accounts.
But Tom, I'm not a Fortune 500 exec.
It doesn't matter. It does not matter. The great thing about this account is you don't have to be a Fortune 500 executive or a banker to take advantage of it.
You mean I can use this account even though I'm retired and in my 60s?
Yes, absolutely. It doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, old, young, married, or single. Practically every person in America can take advantage of a 770 tax-free account.
So we just heard Tom describe how the 770 account works. If you're like me, the question you're probably asking yourself is, how do I get started?